Who have you got?
I haven't had anyone say they can't come. Morning, Jodie. Morning, Heidi.
Good morning.
How are we?
I'm great, thank you.
Good morning.
Morning, Heidi. Dan has accepted. Jamie has accepted. Gareth has accepted. Ellen's the only one that hasn't accepted other than Rocky. And of course, Matt Perez, we know, is away. So he's our only apology at this point in time. So if people are happy, we might kick off knowing that we're recording it and we can send out the recording to those not present. And as people maybe join, we can definitely, keep them informed. But as per the email today, it might be our last one. We're getting to the end of the project as far as the grant's concerned, and certainly the need for governance committee. That being said, we need to have a very fruitful discussion around what next. So what I thought we'd do is give an update on exactly the only things that are left to do. And certainly Mark and myself have got probably a lot of reporting that has to be done for acquittal purposes with Infrastructure New South Wales after this point. But let's start with a bit of an update. And Mark, I might hand to you first, and then I'll just fill any gaps, which there probably may not be any anyway. But see how you go.
Yeah, this is a bit industrial, but just on the procurement delivery side, the plumbing package is now complete. The ablutions in Milparinka and Tibooburra are all hooked up. Accommodation at Milparinka's in, and we've tidied up a few other septic issues around the place, but that's all closed out, so that's a good result. The electrical connections, basically, I'd call it 99%. We've just got to connect a couple of hot water services at Milparinka, which will happen. But basically all the cables are on the ground. The solar panels, I was going to check with Rocky, they're really close to going on in Tibooburra. But they're tying it in with another package for another government department. There's 2 or 3 other buildings there, so we're just sort of waiting on that. Mm-hmm. The off-grid solar batteries are in Mildura. They're a 10 by 10 container that's sort of delivered to site. They're a couple of weeks behind. We were still expecting the installation by the end of the month. They were a couple of weeks behind. They're manufactured in Geelong, and they had to wait for one part, but it's complete now. Basically, they'll deliver the container and they'll place it at the back of the Sturts Kinman place, and then there's a 10-metre trench to the main electrical board on the back of the old ablution block, and then there's solar panels here, there, and everywhere that feed back into that off-grid solar battery system. But we're hoping that's by the end of the month. Camp kitchens are complete. A couple of little defects, but it's all right. Yarning circle, Paxsaddle and Tibooburra campground are complete. The post office is basically waiting the interpreters fit out. I'm not sure if we'll put the light fittings in there as well, but that's really close to complete. I haven't been up for a little while, but planning to go up in the next few weeks, and we'll wait for that solar to go in. The last info shelters at Pineview and Avenel or Toyota campgrounds today. Yandana was put in yesterday, apparently. Sturt and the horse is installed. The emu's complete, and there's astronomy signs out there all installed, but the planisphere is still in transit. They're coming out, leaving this week or early next week. The AW are going to put that in themselves, apparently. We're working with RMS on the wayfinding signs. Had a couple of hours with David and a couple of the RMS team yesterday. Thanks to Dave Zao and Matt Perez. We're looking at getting quite a few signs in earlier, mainly the long directional arrow both ways on the existing structures, the welcome signs, and the the important directional ones. So I guess we're sort of prioritising a bit to get that Sandpar Road border down, so we don't, so we sort of and that type of thing. Yeah, Corona Road, and that and the Pimpara Lake, and then the ones around the Cairn. And we went right around the loop, the top loop yesterday, with all the Cameron Corner ones and the Gandama ones, and yeah, we're all on the same boat now, so that sounds good. And the last item I just want to say thanks to Michael for working on the infrastructure grant, targeting all the power issues in the unincorporated area. We're doing a lot of work on that, Michael, so feeding some of the information we've got from here. But yeah, no, thanks, mate. We'll catch up next trip anyway and see how we're travelling with that, and fingers crossed. That's about it. Like Laurie said, we're very close. I think this time next month, the only thing we'll have outstanding is the directional signage, and that was sort of put back to early next year originally, but it's looking really positive now that we're going to get a lot of them in before the kickoff in July, August, or whatever, and more in before that deadline. So hopefully they're sort of making it. We've given them GPSs and all that. Now they really want pins and that, which is possible, but it's seems to be going okay. So basically that's my update. But if there's any questions, I haven't been out since March because everything's sort of been just trickling along. But I'm really glad to have the electrical and the plumbing up, and once that solar battery goes in, that'll give us a couple of days if the power does go down, which is a bit of an advantage. Plus, it'll allow us to feed back and obviously save on electricity costs. And we'll go from there.
Brilliant. Thanks so much, Mark. Any questions on anything that Mark's talked about?
It is looking really good. It's good to have an opportunity to sort of stand back and look at it all now. Yeah, you can sort of see where you're going with so many little elements here and there, but when it all sort of comes together, no, it's looking good. And I've been talking to Rocky, and she's sort of over the moon. Yarn and Circle went reasonable at Chipperborough. They weren't exactly the same as our curved concrete seats, but that's our available trades up there. It's just a different version, a bit more abstract. Well, I'd say I'll just cut up now.
Yeah, cool. And I thought I'd just ask Ruth, what the travel's like up there at the moment. I know we haven't officially launched it, but from what I'm seeing and hearing in social media and the likes, there's a lot of traffic going up through the area.
Thanks, Laurie. Well, Milparinka Caravan Park had all the powered sites booked out a couple of nights ago, and a few others as well. So that's all humming along. And I went to Tibooburra Saturday, I think, and there was certainly a lot of people around up there then. I guess I'm still a little bit disappointed about the amount of traffic that still hikes straight up the road and doesn't come in to Milparinka. But I think once we've got signage and our websites launched, which presumably is not far away,
Yes.
that sort of thing will change. And I'm not too concerned about it at the moment. We're bubbling along, but I think we've got to really start to think long term about marketing and how we structure things going forward. So I just want to show you something that John just brought in for me. This poor, I tried to rescue him yesterday in the shipyards and marked him, and then I thought I gave him a drink, and then he seemed to brighten up, and I thought, well, I'll put him with some ewes. But obviously he's so I've got a baby to feed now.
Oh dear.
if he survives. As if I haven't got enough to do. But anyway, poor little bugger. Yeah. It looks like the crows have been at him.
Oh, goodness. Okay, so just on that note, yes, I think Ruth's right in saying that those signs will make a big difference to getting people off the main track and seeing the potential of the area. And of course, we've got some events coming up like the Monday Bash, which certainly from an opportunity of getting the message out there before that occurs. I think that's possible with the website so imminent. I've reached out to the Minister's Department and they're looking at the diaries and seeing what they can do in regards to a launch. It sounds like the Transport Minister is also interested in coming along. So it's good that the Transport for New South Wales is also looking at those signs. So,
Laurie, can I just, I just need to let you know that if it's July, it has to be in the first couple of weeks.
Yep.
Because I've got to go to Dubbo for a baby, not mine, a grandchild.
Thanks for that. Yeah, absolutely. I have sort of pre-warned them, but yeah, I think it's going to be a challenge to align any minister, let alone a couple of ministers. But let's just how we
And a baby.
That's right, and a baby. But yeah, we'll try to put it off. Ask them for another date if it falls in that area.
Thank you.
The end of the year, it's the end of the year, whatever they want to do. But it'd be good to sort of officially get it done and dusted. And yeah, get a bit of media. But Ruth highlighted the area of need now, and this is the main point of discussion for today. Is we always knew in the business case that we set up for this project that it would provide the infrastructure that we could certainly capitalise on for visitation to the area. But we knew that being an infrastructure grant that it did not have any capacity for any marketing funds or support in any marketing nature. We would be relying heavily on the people on the screen and listening to this recording for that ability to promote the route in their own marketing and own efforts. We know that's not sustainable, and so the business case said that by the end of the project we would form a more collaborative organisation that could be the conduit between the community on the ground and any government department, and hopefully the likes of people like Destination New South Wales who look at marketing the state to potential visitors. Right now, as you know, Milparinka Heritage Tourism has been the driver behind this whole project. So the idea was that whether it's got two options. One, Milparinka can evolve into a larger entity and have people on screen and those that have been involved and others be involved in that organisation to really look at holistic marketing for Corner Country. Not that Ruth hasn't been doing that for years, but have an entity that can certainly be that conduit and that voice backwards and forwards. One person, two people, Ellen included, is not sustainable long term for that type of activity. So that larger entity could be that. The other option is forming a new entity, and Milparinka is still existing, and then obviously they would become a member of that larger entity. So I wanted to just firstly throw it open and ask people some of the opportunities, some of the challenges that we think that are going to come of this, and what your thoughts are, because we're going to have to certainly come to where it needs to be, very quickly now as we come to the end of the project. So I'll hand over to whoever wants to jump in. Ruth, you want to start?
Yes, I will. Thank you, Laurie. And thanks, everyone. Look, I think that, as Laurie said, the little Milparinka Heritage and Tourism Association has driven this and a number of other projects over the last 20-odd years. As far as our local Milparinka's precinct and caravan park and whatever else comes locally, my thoughts are going forward that remains local, and that as an organisation we should be participating in a broader community corner country entity, whether we call it something exciting like Destination Corner Country or some other similar tourism type name, but it needs to have membership from as many organisations and government type entities as we can possibly garner into that group. So national parks, land council, Jody, even Crown Lands, maybe, whoever else, anyone who's got an investment in that whole region, but it becomes an incorporated organisation in its own right and can drive then forward to oversee the maintenance, in some respects, of the projects that we've put in place. We source some sort of funding for a person to, might be just 0.2 or something like that, but to do the groundwork that's been done voluntarily in a way over the last 20 years, but also to fight the cause that we need marketing money in our own right. It's been a beef of mine and yours, Laurie, and everyone else's, that this whole unincorporated area misses out because no one's got the capacity to think beyond the square of local government. And this is the time to take it forward. We've proven our merit. We've proven that we can be a destination in our own right. We've got the capacity to govern it going forward. And I think that it's time to try and make people actually stand up and support us at a government level. And I'm just a little bit tired of being fobbed off, being made to feel like second-class citizens, just because no one's got the capacity to think outside that box and support us.
Well said. Just a little bit of reflection. I attended the Parks and Leisure Australia event conference last week, and that's run by an incorporated association that has a membership of largely local councils, but people that create open spaces for community to connect. The commissioner of open space, she was DPI, I don't know where she is now, and machinery of government, as those on screen know, is working its magic again. But Fiona Morrison, I grab and sort of say, right, how do you deal with the unincorporated region? And other than trying to educate her on where that was, it was very much, well, we don't understand how we can work with an entity like that, or sorry, a location like that, when it doesn't have a local council, because we're structured that way. And I think that's the challenge we've got with every government department, is that in state government is there, and Mark, you're probably the exception to the rule because you're doing projects with community, but a lot of the government departments at state level create their mechanisms are to work with local councils. So, and I know Michael and I've had this conversation around, the capacity of the region and its reliance on volunteerism. Exhibit A, Ruth being one of the most hardworking volunteers that we have in the region, but village committees and the likes, and how, the region is treated like a second-class citizen. So hopefully this project can give us leverage to make that change. But I'll open up, look, I know you're all government employees except for Ruth and I on screen. So if it's something you feel like you want to contribute to, obviously the recording only goes to the committee, but I'd love people's thoughts or processes that they think that we should be taking to look at this.
Don't all speak at once.
Hi, Heidi. Oh, we can't hear you, Dal.
Well, that will be because I haven't got my microphone down. One of the things that we would be interested in getting some feedback on, I think, is also around the structure in regards to the ongoing ownership and maintenance of the assets that have been created by Sturts. So whether or not, because everything that gets built obviously only has a certain lifespan. And so whether or not with this entity, it will take responsibility for that, or whether it will, who will become have ongoing responsibility for those assets, whether they're individually allocated out to people, or like, I think that given it's a tourist attraction in its own right, it would be good if there was a common ownership across the board, because otherwise some parts of it may fall into disrepair before others. And yeah, obviously it would be good if there was some continuity around the ownership to make sure that the asset could be ongoing. But I can't really comment on, I don't know enough about the region to be making any comments about how it should be structured. I'd like to maybe get some input from some of the other local entities, and I don't know if Michael's got any thoughts about some of the work that we've done. I think we've got some funding to do some consultancy around the ongoing governance in this space. I know Michael's been pretty busy with a few other projects, but including getting the electricity, which is very important for the unincorporated area. So
yeah. Well, to put your mind at ease, I mean, exactly what you started with is exactly what we're discussing. So because at the moment, Milparinka Heritage Tourism own the assets that are in their land. They've created the assets that sit on other people's lands, and they've taken ownership. So Tibooburra Aboriginal Land Council, they've got ownership of their museum now, their campground. You know, the village committee has the amenities in the park. National parks now own the infrastructure that's in the national parks area. But the whole idea of moving to this regional entity was to support the maintenance on all the products as a touring route that supports the whole region.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah. Thank you for
Yeah.
that.
Thanks.
Cool. Okay. Jody, do you have any thoughts? I mean, you've been here since we started the project.
It's a tough one. So you're right, those ones that are on reserves, you know, as you can appreciate, the department is a bit Teflon with managing reserves directly, only because we just don't have the resources, we don't have the people, and we don't have the money to do it.
Yep.
Yeah, look, I really don't have an answer for you, Laurie. Like, the Crown would be resistant to taking on any kind of leadership with managing them.
Oh,
because
we wouldn't be asking that. No, absolutely. I think it's got to stay with region, it's got to stay with industry, but with the support of people like yourselves to create that entity. So I don't think we'd ever ask Crown to take it on and maintain them. And that's why we made sure they're in road reserve and things like that, obviously, as we went through that process. But it's just, you know, what does that entity look like, and how can it satisfy even your own outcomes? Because knowing that you've been dealing with Ruth on a Milparinka level, what could a bigger entity do for you in that region?
it's a good question, and I don't have an answer.
Yep, that's okay.
Can I take that on notice? And I'll
yeah.
have a chat with Sharon about it, and I'll just come back to you all with an email or something, because I really don't know.
I think it's an interesting one for national parks, and I was talking to Michael about this yesterday, because national parks, as we know, have consumed quite a substantial amount of land in this space over the course of the projects really being implemented. It's been that recent. Their resources are low, and being in government previously, I could see the opportunity of having this larger entity really supporting their outcomes, because they don't have enough people on the ground with the new parks. And you know, knowing the remit is certainly to protect and conserve, but they're putting in infrastructure for visitation, and the visitation unit is wanting to see people go into those parks. So, you know, they don't have enough capacity to do that promotion either. So I think this entity could be a great conduit to help National Parks and Wildlife.
Mm,
Like,
mm, mm.
Michael, did you want to jump in and add anything?
Look, I'm not sure how much I can make comment, to be really, really honest. I mean, I haven't been to a lot of these meetings. I think the potential of establishing a larger group that can take ownership of it has a lot of merit. And I think it has a lot of merit in that it can support the funding applications to ensure that all the assets are maintained and updated at the same time. If they're owned individually by different organisations that I guess come together in that larger group, I guess my first concern, without any thought going into that, was the capacity of some organisations to attract funding whilst others can't, and whether that could become a long-term issue down the track where some organisations are attracting significant funding to update and market, whatever that might look like, and others, for whatever reason, aren't able to attract that funding. And then how that might impact the project 5 years down the track. So I guess just from the initial conversation this morning, it feels like there's a fair bit of merit in having that larger organisation and potentially having that larger organisation being able to own, manage, support, whatever that looks like, all of those assets.
Brilliant. Thank you. Any other
Yeah,
thoughts?
Laurie, I think if I may, when we first started this project, as you said, Milparinka will take ownership and control, if you like, of the assets within Milparinka, the Land Council, national parks, etc. And I think that that's a reasonably clear direction for those assets that are on well, public lands, but also on Milparinka, largely on private lands. And our organisation undertook or stated that we would maintain what we've got. That one of the reasons for having a caravan park and other infrastructure that generates income was to make money to look after our assets. And we're a not-for-profit organisation, and we don't pay wages necessarily. So there is a reasonable capacity for creating a fund within that we can use, put money aside for maintenance. And I think the fact that our buildings are mostly new, that we're probably 5 to 10 years away from having to do any major maintenance. So that gives us a real opportunity to save money to create that slush fund going forward. Now, the Land Council in Tibooburra, as you know, is government funded. They have the capacity to source income, source funds to maintain, and again, that museum space is probably 5 or 10 years away. So, I think we are a good way off having to look at fixing up signs or fixing up that. They would be my main concern, actually, the signs on the highway. If they become vandalised or fade in the sunlight, all those sorts of bits and pieces, that, to my way of thinking, that's the one that really bothers me.
I think that's the high risk is the signage aspect, and as we know, it's an important element of the whole program because it does help direct people, and as Transport said very early on with TASAC, the reason why they supported it was because of the safety outcomes that it could provide business to the region.
Have we got a current representative from Transport that's provided any advice? Like, if they're going to be, if a number of the assets are on their property, like on the road reserve, then really they're going to need to have some ownership of that, because no one else can own it, can they, if it's on the road reserve?
Unfortunately, that's the TASAC rules. So TASAC, when you apply for a TASAC sign, the person applies for it has full maintenance requirements on it. If they fall into disrepair, all Transport will do was remove them. They won't replace them. That's the
Okay.
brown and white requirement.
So given the conversation so far is that the people that are going to have ownership of the assets and it's a long time before we get to the infrastructure maintenance stage, hopefully, that we have to worry about that. Is there an opportunity to just bring together those stakeholders that do have ownership together for the marketing component to start with, and then allow that group to evolve?
That's the idea. I think,
Yeah, I agree.
the ownership is very clear from those that attend this meeting, and who owns what. And I'll send the list to Michael on that. But how it evolves, exactly what you said around the maintenance, and we're talking, maximum time of about 5 years before we've probably got to consider that. Hopefully this entity would evolve enough to be able to look at opportunities for that maintenance requirement and work with the partners. But those partners have to be on this entity, whatever entity we're talking about, because they are the asset holders, if you like, of the assets. Because it's on their land, and as I say, the difference is the road reserve signs, which we got approval on the basis that we own and will have to maintain.
So can I ask, Michael, putting all the maintenance stuff aside, if we do create this organisation and we have pretty much even the committee, this management committee in that organisation, do you think there's any capacity for us to source a 0.2 or something like that, who can oversee some of the marketing issues, like maintain the social media stuff, the upgrading the website and all of that? I'm suspecting about a 0.2, could be more, could be less. But do you think there's any scope for sourcing funding for that?
Look, it's a good question, Ruth, and I think it's I guess from my seat, it's blatantly obvious that that's what's required across most of the communities in the unincorporated. How I find the funding, or how we find the funding for that, is a little bit beyond me, and it's something that I've been working on for 5 or 6 years now, especially with the Silverton community, as to how do we find some funding for them to be able to have some paid staff to release some of the pressure off those volunteers that are already volunteering and doing a significant number of things across their communities. I think it's the only real way forward. I guess where we find the funding for that is probably the major challenge. But I think, that it's an obvious strategy and the only real way that we can drive these projects forward. We can't continue to rely on volunteers to be responsible for their own potable water, their rubbish collection, and everything else that we take for granted.
Yeah. So it really requires a political solution, doesn't it? And sadly, I've had many discussions with various politicians over the years. I've met with them in Broken Hill and explained the situation, and I've written letters ad nauseum, and it's always too hard. It goes back. But at the end of the day, it's the stroke of a pen on a bit of paper that determines whether we can go forward or whether we're going to sit here and tread water for the next 50 years, because that's where we are at the moment. If it wasn't for people like Helen and others in Silverton and in Dan in Tibooburra, and to a degree myself, none of this area, this unincorporated area, would have anything. And they all, when it comes to marketing, isn't it wonderful? Look at the outback. Let's show some lovely pictures of the outback, but go to Broken Hill or wherever. It's wrong that we can be used the way we are and it's got to change. I think we're all big grown-up people now. We've proven our merit, and it's time for us to really start to agitate and get somebody off their backsides to acknowledge what we need out here. That's how I feel about it anyway.
Can I just make a comment? So just regarding funding, at the moment, as you would be aware, we've just got a new government at the state level. So any conversations with previous ministers or would be a null and void, I guess, because the new government that's come in has got a different agenda and different focus. So any lobbying that's done in the past would need to be done again to the new government.
Yeah.
But just in they are very open to listening at the moment, and they're very receptive to those issues. But there is a lot that they need to get across in a very short time. Minister Moriarty is the Minister for Regional New South Wales, and she has a very large portfolio to get across. But there would also be a new Minister for Local Government that might be worth, can't think of who that is off the top of my head, that may be worth raising the issue with. But yeah, it's a time while they're in the position where they're formulating their new direction on the way the government's going to go. Maybe it's timely to do some of that lobbying, but also, I can try to make sure that it gets fed up through our paperwork to make sure that they're aware of it. But they do have a lot to get across. And at the moment, a lot of funding streams are on pause while they work out which is their focus and what they're focusing on moving forward.
Yeah.
So at a state level, there might not be a lot of funding opportunities at the moment for that type of position. Not that I can think of, but definitely we'll keep our eyes open to see if there's anything that might come up.
Okay, thank you. And I certainly understand that, what was said in the past to whomever is now, it's gone. It's too late, she cried. And this issue, this problem should have been resolved a number of years ago. If I go back, I was saying to Michael the other day, back in the day when state and regional development was operating probably from the opera office where you are, they did have some money that they would allocate to us for the marketing, and we were able to double dip, if you like, and use some of that marketing money to pay into a campaign that was run by Tourism New South Wales. So we got a special dispensation. Excuse me, but once that office closed and moved over to where Michael, I believe this is right, Michael, to the position that you hold with an amalgamation of state and federal government funding through RDA, then I might be wrong on that, but that opportunity stopped. And so there's been nothing ever since. The only marketing for this area that gets paid for is what our volunteers in Milparinka raise by selling souvenirs or, whatever. That's where all the money comes from for the websites that we own. We own the website. We own a whole stack of URLs, so we've locked up or locked people out, if you like, from trying to get into our region. We've tried to be strategic about that. I do all the social media stuff, and it's a big job, and I'm tired, and it needs to be taken over by someone responsibly, and government need to take responsibility for funding it. They can't just say, oh, it's all too hard. It's not our fault we're unincorporated.
No,
As much as
not
I
at
think
all.
it's an advantage at times, but it's a big advantage, but it's not our fault.
No, it's not at all. But I think that one of the things that can help in this space is always if we have a solution that we think that would work. So if we can formulate something and go to them with the plan, then they're the type of things that get funded really quickly. So if we can put together something that we think will work and put it forward to them, then all they have to do is say yes or no. Michael, I'm not sure if that consultancy piece of work we've got you working on gives us the ability to formulate some direction around this, and whether or not it's just on the tourism space or if it's a bit broader. And we'd have conversations about, like we're talking about the Sturts steps, but you've mentioned as well about Silverton. Like, is it a bigger group or is it just a group that just oversees Sturts steps?
That's an interesting point, Hody. And I think, look, that piece of consultancy could probably look whatever we want it to look. And I think it's a perfect opportunity for us to probably focus on the Sturts steps outcome, but also include a piece about the whole of the unincorporated area. And it really comes down to, is it better for us to look for funding that support paid staff, or is it better for us to look for government funding that support the ongoing maintenance and growth and marketing, and use the funding that you guys are saving through entry, etc., that you're planning for maintenance, to use that for paid staff? And the reason I say that is because I find that most state governments are reluctant to look at supporting paid staff on an ongoing basis. And I wonder if potentially it's easier to say, we'll cover the paid staff from the money that we're planning to make through this project, but you guys need to cover the ongoing maintenance, marketing, growth, etc.
Got a couple of thoughts on that, and I suppose the challenge that the region has, Ruth's a great example. They all have their own jobs and what they're doing, and to ask them to do any more of a voluntary capacity is not able to be done. So I think without any support for paid staff, however that happens, whether it's through the the income of the project or otherwise, without that paid staff, it's not sustainable. And I think when you look at Destination New South Wales putting staff resources into the DN, the Destination Network, who has openly told us that they cannot work with the unincorporated region because there's no council there, well then, okay, Tourism New South Wales, what's your solution? Or Destination New South Wales, what's your solution? Working with untapped area. So, I mean, John Graham, yep, he's new to the role. He's not ready to see us yet, but they have said that they're ready to see us soon, to understand how they can support us. But again, it's a political thing. Ironically, he's the Minister for Roads as well. So, we've probably got an opportunity, because we are using the road network so highly in that tourism space, that he is probably the will, unless we've got strategies. And to Hody's point, we need to have that solution that's supported by strategy in all the different department areas. And that's why I think this governance committee is so powerful, because, like I said, National Parks has got outcomes they've got to meet. Crown Land's got, outcomes they've got to meet. If we can align that into this entity, and I think the solution is this entity with some sort of support of, as Ruth said, maybe a 0.2 or a 0.5, at least you've got someone on the ground that can be that liaison point, that doesn't have to take the bookings for the pub and serve a beer and serve the meal as well. You've actually got someone that's dedicated to that role that can be that conduit.
Laurie, have any discussions been had with local government association?
Not the association per se, no.
Okay.
I haven't.
Because Silverton used to get ongoing funding from LGA. I can't remember how much it was a year. I'm not sure if they still get it, but from memory, I think it was about 10,000 a year, even though it is in the unincorporated.
They'd get what's called the financial assistance grants, which is a federally governed amount of money that goes to each community, and then or each LGA, and then it's allocated by the states to the specific LGAs. And I think the unincorporated gets a component of that, and they give it to the town committees. But Michael, I think, might have a better idea of the dollar amounts that they receive, but it's not very much. And they've got to do a lot of different things with that bucket of money, from my understanding.
No, well, in Silverton, they use that money for like to do services a local government would do in a town, like rubbish collection, you know, all those kind of just community kind of services.
Services, yeah. Mm.
So, I mean, there's really only Tupperaborough and Silverton that are eligible for the FAGS grants. And look, to be really honest and really blunt, it's beer money. I'd be flat out covering my beer bill for the year, let alone anything else. I mean, when we start to look at rubbish collection and the things that these guys have got to do for themselves, it's not cutting it. And there's no way it gives them capacity to look at paid staff.
Mm. I mean, 0.5 of the average wage in New South Wales right now would be probably $50,000.
Plus on costs. If we magically had funding for a 0.5, what are our chances of attracting a 0.5?
As in a staff person to do it?
Mm-hmm.
I might ask Ruth that question, but
Don't ask me. I think I probably don't really know, but given, you know, the sort of employment situation that's out there, people say they're looking for jobs, but where do you find people who are willing to do that? I honestly don't know, Michael, until you
Ruth,
test it.
Would it be fair to say that you're likely to attract a retiree?
Possibly.
I was actually thinking the opposite. I was actually thinking the staff in the visitor centre at Broken Hill, to get ahead in a career path, this would be an awesome opportunity for them.
You wouldn't keep them out there. Like socially, you would struggle to keep a young person out there.
The reason, based in region?
Sorry?
Do they have to be based in the unincorporated region?
No, no, not these days.
Yeah, fair call. I mean, the reason why I asked about a retiree is because they can only earn so much before their pension cuts out.
Yeah.
So you may not be looking at 50K.
One of the challenges when you, and I'm not saying don't do this, but I'm just saying one of the challenges with volunteerism is that when you start providing some paid positions, it becomes very difficult to manage the balance between the volunteers and the paid staff member and expectations. And so I'm not sure who the person would be that was appointed, but I guess you look at what Dan does with the water at Tupperaborough, and what he does as a volunteer is not what someone would be able to do as a paid staff member.
It's actually against the law to have the same, like you cannot have a volunteer job description and a paid job description identical. So you'd have to actually make sure that that job description for that person is nothing what volunteers are currently doing. And it's actually got a purpose and a drive behind it, because otherwise you are breaking Fair Work legislation.
Yeah. So I think, that's something that just needs to be kept in mind, because people will feel resentful if they're doing the stuff for free and then all of a sudden someone's getting paid to do half the amount of work because,
That's right. And like we said in the beginning, I think this position, if we were able to get this position, has to be that political conduit as well as operational conduit between government and the region. And there is no one doing it.
So to your point, Hody, but I think there are some steps in this. First of all, I think we need to have agreement amongst the members of this management committee that we will form a new incorporated association that's called, as I suggested before, Destination Corner Country. That's to fly in the face of Destination Country and Outback, or whatever they're called, who really don't give a toss about what we're doing, and they've made it quite clear. But at the end of the day, I don't care what it's called. but it is an entity with governance, proper governance, elected chair, secretary, and so forth, and that under that framework there is an employee who's given direction by the management of the group to do certain tasks. Would you agree with something like that, Laurie? But the first step is to form the association, to get Rocky and Jamie and Gareth and whoever else on board. And we are not individuals, but we are representatives of various local organisations, so that we're not we might have a representative of a business within the area. I think there would be advantages to having that, but
So is the next step that we have to have a meeting with those key stakeholders? Because I feel like that they need to be at the table to be having some of this conversation, because like I can't have a view because we're the funding body, not the community. Like I want it to be driven by what it is that the community wants. And if those people are the ones that are potentially sitting on it, then I feel like they need to be having a voice.
Yeah,
That was the purpose of this meeting. They were meant to be here.
Perfect. Oh, but they couldn't come.
Well,
Okay.
they didn't tell me they couldn't, but
Yeah.
So, every single person that Ruth just mentioned is part of this governance committee.
Should we have a try to have a face-to-face maybe? Would that work?
Probably, but you've also got even national parks people in Broken Hill, and it'd be ideal.
Is Broken Hill a central place? Like, could we try to?
Not for corner country people.
Not for,
well, if it came to that, I think we have to do it. And we could try with a meeting like this. Maybe we need to make it, Laurie, maybe what we should be doing is putting together, you and I perhaps, put together a summary of what we've discussed here and what is being proposed, and that we circulate that amongst the people who we'd need to have on that committee. And then once we've got, I guess it's once, and then go forward from there.
Yep.
The problem that we've got is that everybody has a day job, and to then sort of form into some sort of group is challenging. But I think we've got to do it if we're going to drive corner country tourism and maintenance of what we've put in place. Then we have to do this. I think anyway.
It just emphasises the need for the paid staff person. But trying to get that organisation. I agree. I think we do a summary. We bring down the model rules. We say, right, we need at least 6 positions to form, the committee, and nominate people. But we could also do even expression of interest out to the businesses, because people like hotel, Tippavara Hotel, whatever, Wild Deserts, I'd love to see, potentially nominating on that committee. It doesn't have to be government people, but I'd like to ensure that open communication with all of the government entities, because that's what makes up the operated region, is consistent. So even if they're just not appointed positions, but they certainly come to the meetings, I think is crucial.
Can we do some one-on-one consultations with them before the next meeting? Just having some of those conversations before we get here, so then they've got a really clear understanding of what the purpose of that next meeting will be.
Well, as per the invite I sent out to everyone, this is our last meeting. So obviously,
Right,
from a step sense, we need to close that off, and then okay, this needs
Yeah.
to be another form. So it's having that, yeah, and I think you're right. It's having those conversations one-on-one with people before that happens.
Well,
Yeah.
I'm happy to talk to Jamie or Gareth, Jamie probably,
Mhm.
and Rocky. I can do that.
Mhm.
Jody or Michael, are you guys connected to any, like, does anyone go to the other town committee meetings? Like, is it possible to raise it in some of their conversations?
Sorry,
Ruth,
I just
obviously.
missed it because I was having a coffee fit.
Sorry. I just wondered if Jody or Michael go to any of the other town meetings, like village committees. Yeah.
Silverton I do, Tibooburra I don't.
Ruth can maybe raise it at the next Tibooburra one.
Oh,
Ruth,
well,
are
I
you
don't
on
go
that
to,
one?
no, I'm happy to talk to Dan Huff about it though, and Tracy Hodgson. Yeah.
Yeah, and they could maybe raise it at their, like, if we could get it onto the agenda at the next village committee meetings, and someone take responsibility to make sure that feedback comes back.
Yeah.
And yeah, that would maybe be a good start.
What do we take there though, Hody? We'd need to know what it is we're taking there. Like, what are we asking of them? What is their involvement? Because they'll be the same, in the same boat as you, as thinking, as this group, in thinking, I don't want to take on any more because it's unpaid. So what is it that is being asked of them?
Maybe we need to come up with a couple of simple questions about, or a little bit of a brief about what we want to know about, and then a couple of questions to get their feedback.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm not sure, Michael, if you're doing any of this sort of work with your consultation piece, like if it fits with.
Look, potentially, Hody, I'm still looking at what that might look like, and I guess probably being informed more by meetings like this as we go along as well. But look, I think there's a huge opportunity for the various village committees, progress associations, what they might be, to be members of this entity, whether they're part of the management committee of that. But I think there's an opportunity for very, very broad membership.
Agreed.
You know, and I guess in my head, I would probably caution against having a representative committee. I would always steer very closely to a skills-based committee, keeping in mind that we can't represent everybody in our region, but we should all be there for the right reason of driving the project forward. So I think broader membership that brings different perspectives, but a very skills-based board would probably be my recommendation with that.
And I mean, I have met with the Tibooburra Village Committee with transport, but I'm happy to maybe come up and try to get to some of the meetings. I can't guarantee my availability, but maybe I'm happy to work with anyone who might like to take me to meet the committees, and I could help raise that and be involved in some of those conversations if that's of any use.
I can do that with you, Hody.
Yay! Thanks, Joe. Road trip. I'm excited. I've been to Tibooburra once, but I'd love to see the Sturts again now that they're nearing completion. So,
cool.
Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah, the more the merrier. I think that
my job's done now. I'm out of here.
The more of us that can go along and talk with these guys, the better we'll get that input from them. Yeah. So
the only question I suppose, and selfishly for myself and Mark, is now, you know, as we finalise the project and the handover of obviously the content that we give to infrastructure, right now, as it's positioned, that contact for us is Ruth. So we will be finishing off the project and handing that content to Ruth as Milprinka Heritage Tourism Association. So whatever develops from here, you know, you just probably need to know that, because as Mark said, as of, well, it'll probably be 30 June to be honest, but at the end of the day, most stuff will be done in the next 2 weeks. So we'll be finalising that expenditure, closing off that, and packaging it up and with a tidy bow on the top and handing it across.
It's a, Anyway, my mother always did say that I create rods for my own back. But anyway,
Well, that's what hopefully this meeting is not. It's gonna create, yeah, more rods.
well, a few less rods would be helpful. But I think we've achieved an awful lot with very little, to be honest. And I suppose if I was 50 and not what I am, it wouldn't be quite a challenge for me personally that it is now. But it's time for me to sort of settle back, and
Definitely.
I'm happy to, I don't want to be cast out into the wilderness, or that would be nice sometimes. But I just think we've done the hard yards, and now we need to let somebody else or another entity take the reins and go forward with it.
And not lose its knowledge.
On behalf of the department, I'd just like to thank Ruth for all of your volunteer work in getting it to this stage. Like, without people like you on the ground, we can't achieve anything. So I hope you realise how great the effort that you've made has made such a major difference to corner country and tourism in that part of the world. I hadn't been there before I started in the role, and just to see that the country and the assets that you've created through this project's amazing. Like, I think it will be a legacy for years to come that people will continue to enjoy. So I hope you realise how grateful everyone is for your contribution.
Well, thank you. That's very kind. But I've always said there were two other people involved in all of this. One is Raylene Ogilvie, who started the restoration of the Milparinka Courthouse back in about 1983, and I tagged along on her coattails to see things being done. And the other is Laurie, who without whom we wouldn't have this project, because as many big ideas as I might have about things, you actually need the capacity to put together all the business cases and all that stuff that I find all too hard and pretty boring, actually. So it comes back to Laurie and to Mark for managing the finances and everything like that. So, but thank you. That's very, very nice. Yeah.
It's definitely a great team you've got out there. I just said to Michael yesterday, I can't believe how much work he does. He just finished one task and I was already talking to him about the next thing he was going to work on for the unincorporated area. I think he's a great asset to have too. But Laurie, I'm going to have to go. I've got another meeting that started at 10. But thank you so much for everything you've done pulling it together. I'm happy to coordinate with Jody, and we'll make a time to go out to those village committee meetings over the next couple of months. And if someone wants to support us with some materials that we can take to them, that would be great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
I'll talk to you, Jode. Thank
No
you.
worries. See ya.
Bye.
Excuse me.
Oh, look, and Gareth just joined us. Are you there, Gareth? No, must have trouble joining, but okay, so where to from here? I think that I'm two minds on this. Michael, do we wait until you've done your work, or is that not going to be short?
Look, I think the pathway seems fairly clear going forward to establish this new group. I think the challenge is who's going to be part of that new group and who's going to be part of the committee of that.
Yep. So no, don't wait for your outcomes is what you're saying.
No, look, I don't think so. I think I really think we need to move on this now, and establishing a not-for-profit is a pretty simple job.
Absolutely.
It's really just understanding who's going to be part of that is the challenge. And I think the opportunity is now.
Yeah.
Great. All right. So, Ruth, you'll have some conversations one-on-one, but I might just formulate a bit of an EOI sort of expression that we can send out for people that are wishing to be part of it, and then we'll chat offline, see how we can get that up then before this closes off.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Sounds good. Thanks, Laurie.
Thank you guys for a great conversation that's been quite open and transparent. As we said, we are recording it, so we will send it to the other committee members so that they can catch up, because that's a crucial element, as Hody mentioned. Anything else before we close off? No. Okay.
No,
Thank you
not
all.
for me. Yeah. All
Well,
right.
Mark, on behalf of us, I suppose, thank you for having Mark and myself as part of the project and getting it to what it is. It's so exciting to see it all up in place and looking fantastic. Mark, did you want to say anything?
No, I think everything is covered. I think all I had prior was like an expression of interest would be good to go out to various people. Whether or not, if you call it corner country or unincorporated group or something like that, so it captures everybody. And just, you know, businesses like the pubs, like you've already mentioned, Paxetta Roadhouse, and even some of the station stays might have, because it is promoting theirs. I don't know. Yeah, just talk to different groups. Not that they have to come to every meeting, as you say, but no, I think it's a good kickoff. We do need something, and we've got verbal commitments and that everything we've put in that everyone loves, and they're going to clean the loos and they're going to maintain the campgrounds and all of that. So that's just formalising it. But yeah, an overseeing group of the whole unincorporated area and drag children along the ride. Yeah, get a voice up there. But yeah, I won't be going anywhere. My heart's still up there, so I'll be still ticking around. And yeah, no, it's been a great project. I've really enjoyed it. And you're amazing, Ruth.
Thank you, Mark. It's been a good journey.
I'll come up for that Yabby trip sometime when it's a bit warmer. Yeah.
All right. Well, I'm sure we'll talk again very soon.
For
Yeah.
sure.
All right. I better go and fix this poor little baby up.
Yes.
See what
Good luck with the
I'll
lab.
do with it. Mm.
Fabulous. All right,
Okay.
great to see everyone.
Congratulations on all you've
Yeah.
achieved, guys. It's outstanding.
Thank you. Yeah, as we said, a team effort all along the way, including those on screen.
Well done, everyone. Sorry I joined in late. So,
That's all right, Gareth. We'll catch you up if you can hang back. We'll give you a quick summary.
okay.
Yeah. I need to go. So
Go,
I'll,
Ruth.
yeah. Bye for now. I'll
Thanks.
talk to
Bye.
you soon, Gareth. I've got some more work done. Oh, anyway. Yeah.
Awesome.
All right.
I'm about to send you an email. Great.
Oh, excellent. All right. Bye for now.
All right,
Bye.
thanks, guys. See ya.
Bye.
See you later.
Bye.
There you go.
Oh, she sounds so sick. Poor thing.
We've all had
Yeah.
I think it's just rampant here that they had to cancel sport events because everyone's got the same thing. The whole bloke here plays tennis and everyone's got COVID or some form of something. So,
I have to say, everyone around me at the moment, I'm just like, stay away. It's terrible.
oh,
Yeah.
I don't know the house.
Yeah.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, what's happening, Gareth? You busy?
Yes, I'm actually pretty much going to talk to you guys and finish sending an email to Ruth, and then I'm going to head off home because I'm sick as well. So
Yeah,
I pushed it out a couple of days, and now I'm no longer just silently suffering. I'm starting to cough and splutter, so it's time to get out of here.
yeah, absolutely. You've got to recognize that.
Hey,
Yeah.
I'll be up in a few weeks, mate, so I'll sit down and catch up with you anyway.
Okay.
We're along the line.
Okay. So my understanding is that we didn't end up having enough funding to do the work to stabilize the can. That's what I was informed. So
Yeah,
that
and it's the worst feeling. I feel terrible about it. We were going to put some money at it, and then RMS did a backflip on us and wouldn't do the signs once Tom left. And we sort of tried to keep, well, I think Dan and I were talking 60 grand or something, and then Josh had, I think, come back at 170, and Dan said, I was really struggling to do it. Maybe we just try and get some funds in a couple of years and hit
okay.
it. And so that's the worst part of the whole project. I feel terrible about it. It's something I really wanted to do. It was just, and we do have to get the finances sort of knocked over by the end of June. And and Tommy Carruthers said to me the whole time, "Oh, you won't cost anything." So I had 100 grand sitting on it, and then they did a complete backflip when Tom got the promotion, and said, "We want 300,000." I went, "Wow."
Yeah, right.
Do the job. Anyway, I said I can scratch together 200 if we knocked a can on the head. And yeah, I'd rather be brutally honest with you, but I feel bloody terrible after everything Dan's done and you've done. And
that's all right. We've got the approvals in place, so as I said, I think if we even if we can get on top of our own workloads and do the work ourselves, then we can just find some money to get the materials.
Yeah, I was going to ring you and apologise, but Dan and I had to call and we had the conversation, and we just called it. He said he was just stretched anyway. As you all are. Actually, we're getting the same. Where I don't know which way to look at it. It's trying to walk out of this room and look at the next job. Yeah, it's not good. But yeah, no, not a great outcome. But anyway, as I say, it was one of the bits I sort of wanted to do. But yeah, I don't know, such a better job trying to turning back the tide, isn't it?
That's right. And so you've got Les going out to put in shelters at Mount Paul and Avenel in the near future.
Mount Paul's done as far as I believe. Rocky's had a look and done it, and there's only Avenel and Pine View, and he's going to do those tomorrow. But Susan rang me. I had back-to-back meetings all day yesterday and had this call and thought I better ring back. And he said, "Oh, he's doing it tomorrow." I said, "Oh God, can't ever remember where it was going." But did you see the email with the little somewhere there?
Yes.
Yep. Cool. Yeah. So no, hopefully. And then I thought I've left here at 5:30, 6 last night sending it. I thought I bet this bounces back halfway home because of Les's internet, but I haven't heard any more. So hopefully it'll go in right.
Yeah.
Avenel's being done as we speak because that artwork went to AW Sign, so that should be in the ship load.
Okay. Yeah, I just had 3 weeks off, and I just noticed the image of the Sturts sort of drawing, ST Gill's drawing, got dropped off the final. I was going to send that back, but this was like yesterday. Oh no, I think it's too late. That should have already gone. But that's all right. Yeah, I think it's they've got plenty on there, but the whole change around of the sign, and
right.
But, that's all right. It's going to be good, and regardless.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's pleasing to know. I can find out what's going on the press, but I know we've been putting some pressure on AW Signs to finish it, so I'll be reluctant to sort of go halt the process.
Yeah.
I'll probably delay it even more.
Yep. Fair enough. And how are you feeling about it, Laurie? You're all right?
Yeah, good. I'm just trying to work with the minister's office on when they're going to cut a ribbon, so to speak. And it sounds like because of the degree of the transport signs, the transport minister also wants an invite. So trying to align ministers' diaries and routes. It's going to be interesting. But that's pretty much it. I mean, as Mark said, we're hoping to get everything sort of packaged up, acquitted, any necessary reports to infrastructure before the end of the financial year.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
They're sort of putting a bit of pressure on to roll it up, and we did have a 12 months extension with the COVID stuff anyway. It'll trundle into July, August by the time we cut stuff out.
But from the committee sense, and that's probably the meeting today, I have to say it's trying, oh, sorry, I'm still recording.